wherever you get your power doesn't necessarily have to be everybody's business. Sometimes it is even preferable to cultivate power in a space that is not immediately visible to others and that may even carry with it a distraction from the other direction. So all the attention goes over there while I'm handling business and making moves over here. Sometimes that is the strongest move that you can make, especially if you can do that in the linguistic arena in some kind of way, if you can do that in the contractual space some kind of way, if you can give yourself a little bit of a backdoor and code it in language that is difficult to understand or maybe even boring and just no one cares about it, but you give yourself a little bit of a power play there. Maybe that is a way that you can safeguard your own successes and keep yourself moving forward. Maybe that's what we're doing this week with everybody piling into Aquarius. What's up, everybody? It is your boy Zamboni. If you want to get an astrology reading, you can go to zambonifunk.com. If you want to learn how to read not only the stars, but the waves of energy that we live in, you can go to zambonifunk.com and check out Astrology from the Ground Up. It is a strong course for understanding complex systems, which is where we live at. And in order to succeed in the future, we're going to need to understand how to work with information. Plenty of information on how to do that at zambonifunk.com. Check it out. So this week we got everybody piling into Aquarius, right? So first is going to be Venus. And the thing is, all right, so in the very beginning of Aquarius, we've already got Pluto there, right? Pluto is hanging out there. Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for the foreseeable future. And so every time we get a planet going into a fixed sign, then we're going to see some kind of Pluto interaction. That's why I'm talking about power plays in this kind of way. That's also why I'm talking about hidden power plays as much as this. So, Pluto is the planet of the hell realm, the deep, the thing that is down beneath the surface that you don't necessarily see what's going on, but there's something kind of earth shifting about it. That is associated with Pluto. Oftentimes there's something a little bit horrific associated with Pluto. Like I often think about Pluto as like the fear of the dark, or there is something, the fear of the concept in some kind of way. I think about Pluto as being associated with the funhouse mirror sometimes, right? Like you look in the mirror and you get a distorted image back at you, and then that freaks out your concept of yourself, and then that goes on to influence actions that you wouldn't have otherwise done, or thoughts that you wouldn't have otherwise had, that kind of thing, right? That's where Pluto is. And so we've got Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is this place, it's a air sign. It is Saturn's air sign. So an air sign is usually going to be associated with language or communication in some kind of way. And then Saturn is going to be associated with rules and boundaries and structures and this sort of stuff, right? That's where we get the contractual legal obligation sort of thing, right? Rules in language is how we got there, right? And so Aquarius is this place where working as a collective society comes down to how we do rules and the kinds of contractual obligations we have or agreements that we have with one another, right? So speaking of agreements and cooperation, Venus is the planet of cooperation. And so the first one that's going to make it into Aquarius this week is Venus. And we're going to see this Venus-Pluto conjunction. One thing about a Venus-Pluto conjunction is, so Venus is also the planet of desire and stuff that you want to put together, adhesion, cohesion, all that sort of stuff, right? And so seeing Venus together with Pluto can look like desires that are out of whack, or fear around desire, especially fear of desire that you don't necessarily understand very well. And so with this kind of thing, jealousy can show up in a really big way. This is something to watch out for this week. Feeling, especially if you are in a place where you feel like you need to cultivate your power in some kind of way, especially cultivate your power in response to power that others have or something like that. It's kind of a defensive play here. Then that can get you to a place where you're acting a little bit outlandish. And so it's going to be a good idea to keep a trusted associate around and run this by them and be like, okay, I'm thinking about making this crazy ass move. How do you feel about that? You know what I mean? Am I on the right track here? This is a good time. I have another course called Which Way to Wisdom. It goes through some ways to look inside your own heart to see what you really want. This is a good time to employ that kind of tech, muscle testing and flipping a coin and these kinds of things. Pendulum is another good way to do it. So you can think through that sort of stuff with that Venus and Pluto together in Aquarius. That looks like, it's going to have a lot of feelings, big feelings. Some of that is going to be toward your truest, most hidden desire. Listen to your body, listen to what's going on here, because you're going to get some important information. Speaking of getting important information, this week we're also going to get a Mercury cazimi directly conjunct Pluto at 3 degrees of Aquarius, right? So Mercury and the sun are going to be together in Aquarius at 3 degrees along with Pluto. So Mercury cazimi I always think of as like a special message from the king in some kind of way, like there's something out, like we're saying stuff, and so Mercury has this moment of clarity, right? So Mercury is the communication planet, the one that has to do with speaking, writing, listening, reading, all of this sort of stuff. And so to see that together with the sun looks like some kind of important pronouncement, right? Now, it does still look like a power play. So again, this has me thinking that, and it's because we've got the sun along with everybody here, no one is very far from the sun, and so no one is visible. There's something invisible about this. Not only is it Pluto, but also proximity to the sun creates a kind of invisibility. So that's why I'm thinking that like this announcement might be a little bit of a distraction. Now, the prediction that I have here is that there's some kind of like maybe crypto regulation or AI regulation or something like that looks like it wants to be on the horizon here, trying to find some rules around how we are going to approach the information age in a way that has rules that isn't just the wild, wild west. But I don't think it's legit. I think that like there's a little bit of a bait and switch that's going on out here. One of the things that I continue to want to center in all of my work is the agency of oneself. You can decide what you're going to do in your life, what rules you're going to live by, and how you're going to do that. Now, there's some things that you can't get rid of, like gravity is going to pull you toward the center of the earth and that kind of thing, right? So there are some rules which are hard and fast. However, those rules are not the same as human laws, and you need to figure out how you are going to abide by human laws or not, while in keeping with the real laws of the world, which are things like gravity pulls you toward the center of the earth and stuff like that, right? And so this looks to me like a moment where backdoor plays are it. So, thinking with this kind of thing, I have been a bit of a proponent of AI recently, right? And so one of the things that I have been doing is, so I'm learning another language. I speak Spanish, but like not that well. I speak Spanish fine, like better than everyone else around me and whatever, because no one speaks Spanish around me. But I've been learning to speak another language because I think that we're moving into an information environment where we're going to need to be able to read language at a few different levels. So the idea of code switching or something like this is going to be a really important thing to think with here, right? Like being able to speak in several different modes and understand language that comes at you in several different modes. We can think about 1984 and doublespeak, right? The idea, or corporate, corporations will tell you a thing. They will tell you a thing that sounds true but is actually false, or sounds false but is actually true, and you have to read the subtext all the time, that sort of thing. This is an important skill to learn and master, because we are not coming into a moment where things are going to be more face value. We're coming into a time where you're going to need to be able to understand at least 2 layers of whatever is being said to you, right? And computers are really good at corporate doublespeak. They're so good at it. And as more robotic language is coming your way, you're going to need to be able to not only understand that, but how can you wield that kind of power in order to create your own best outcomes. You can create the more beautiful world that our hearts know is possible. And maybe you can use power plays in order to take us in that direction.